Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church here in Plano, Texas. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm. I am the minister of this congregation, and I'm so glad to see you here in person, joining us online. Thank you for making time today, this morning, to be here, to join us on this Sunday morning. We are a faith community that affirms the dignity of all beings and puts love at the center. We also work for justice. And what binds us together is not a creed, something that we have to recite every time and believe in, but it is a covenant, our values and our mission that binds us together in this community. This week we are at the turning of the season when our Jewish kin are focused on accountability and repair. Right now we're in the midst of the days of awe, or High Holy Days, which is one of the most important holidays in the Jewish tradition. This last week was Rosh Hashanah, and next week is Yom Kippur. That kind of is the beginning and end of the season. So Rosh Hashanah is the time when, in this tradition, people are called to look back at how we have lived our lives in the last year. And then on Yom Kippur, people are called to look at how we may want to live our lives in the coming year. We've been given freedom to choose to be human beings in this world where it often seems that no one, or at least a lot of people, do not behave as if they were human beings. On these days between, the spirit of time calls us to look at ourselves from different place, from a different vantage point, to see ourselves without the trappings, without the clutter of the days, and to see ourselves truly as we are. That's why these days are called the days of awe, to see ourselves as human beings, full of potential, full of grace, full of fragility that we live with as well. So this time is ripe for discernment around accountability. And particularly when we see some of our leaders living in the ways where they are not holding themselves accountable, we may want to ask, well, why would we want to live with being accountable? They don't do it. Why should we? So if we decide that we do want to live with accountability, how do we practice it? Who are we accountable to? And how do we hold ourselves, our staff, one another accountable for what we have agreed to be our mission here at this church? How do we hold ourselves accountable for living all that out together in a spirit of love? I hope you will engage these questions together with me and in good faith, recognizing that communal religious life is a continuous process of returning, renewing, and recommitting to our core values and common visions that calls us forward together. Wherever you are on the journey, we are glad you are here today. For the call to worship, I am offering you words by Chip Roush. We are about to enter sacred time. We are about to make this time and this place sacred by our presence and intention. Please turn off or silence your phones, and as you do so, I invite us also to turn down the volume on our fears, to remove our masks, and to loosen the armor around the hearts. Don't take my word for it. Do it as slowly as you need to. If you take a little risk with these good people, you may find that they have the same human needs as you do. Breathe. Let go of the expectations placed on you by others and those they taught you to place on yourself. Drop the guilt and the shame, not to shrink accountability, but in honest expectation of the possibility of forgiveness. Let go of the thing you said the other day. Let go of the thing you dread next week. Be here in this moment. Breathe. Here. Let us join in worship together and begin by lighting the chalice, a symbol of our religious tradition. And it's Ann Smith who will light it for us.
May its light guide us toward the courageous and open-hearted apology, toward repair of relationships in our lives. May its heat warm our hearts to offer forgiveness to those who have wronged us, allowing us to release the chains of grudge and blame that have bound us to them. And may its strength help us take the actions that are within our power to make this next year more just, more loving, and more peaceful for our communities and for all of humanity. And let us say together, Amen. Amen.
A covenant is the promise we make to one another about the way we will walk together as a community as well as a congregation. Please join me in reminding ourselves of this promise.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
I have a story today that's called The Empty Pot. I found one. I do a lot of gardening, so you know gardeners always have something left in their store. So this is one of the pots that had been used in the past. But it's a story about a boy called Ping. The story comes from our Spirit Play curriculum. It is a unique curriculum for children that we use. Usually children would sit down and lay the story out on the carpet, and it involves a lot of these kind of visual things. So I'm not going to go down on the floor, and I'm not going to ask you to sit down on it with me. We'll adapt today for this story. So a long time ago in China, there was a boy named Ping who loved flowers. And anything he would plant would burst into blooms. He would have flowers and bushes and big fruit trees, and they would all come to life as if there was some magic to his work. And everyone in that kingdom liked flowers, and especially the emperor. Those were the days when China had emperors. The emperor tended to his garden every day. But the problem was the emperor was old, and he was realizing that without having children, he needed someone who will continue to lead the country, lead the nation, tend to the flowers when he's gone. But how would he choose that successor? Well, because the emperor loved flowers so much, he decided to let the flowers choose. So there was a proclamation that was issued that all the children of the land were to come to the palace. They would be given a special flower seed by the emperor, and whoever can show me their best in 1 year's time will succeed to the throne. Well, the news created a great excitement. Children came from all over the country, swarmed the palace just to get the flower seed. And, all the parents also wanted their child to be chosen as an emperor, so they were happy, coming along and excited. And Ping as well came to the palace to receive his seed from the emperor. And when he received that seed, he was the happiest child that there could be, because he knew he could grow the most beautiful flower. So when he got home, he grabbed the pot, empty pot, filled it with soil, put the seed in, watered it, and just started to wait. He was pretty anxious. He couldn't wait to see it grow. But day after day passed, and nothing grew in the pot. Ping was quite worried. He grabbed a bigger pot. Put more soil in it. Put the seed back in there. Again, kept watering and watching and waited for another month, and nothing happened. By and by, the whole year passed. Spring came. All the children put on their best clothes to greet the emperor, and they rushed to the palace, and they were carrying beautiful flowers. When his friend ran by, he said, "Ping, you're not carrying an empty pot to the emperor, are you? Couldn't you grow a big flower like mine?" And Ping said, "I have grown lots of flowers, better than yours. It's just that this seed wouldn't grow." Ping's father overheard this and said, "You did your best, and your best is good enough to present to the emperor." So holding an empty pot in his hands, Ping went straight to the palace. The emperor was looking around at the flowers, walked by them one by one, and they were so beautiful. But the emperor was frowning. He didn't say a word until he came to the Ping's bucket. Ping kind of hung his head in shame, expecting that he's going to be punished. The emperor asked him, "Why did you bring me an empty pot?" And Ping started to cry and responded, "I planted the seed you gave me. I watered it every day, but it didn't sprout. I put it in a bigger pot with the better soil, but it still didn't sprout. I tended to it all year long, but nothing grew. So today I had to bring an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do." When the emperor heard these words, a smile spread over his face, and he put his arms around Ping and said, "I have found my successor. he is the one that's worthy to be an emperor. Because I don't know where you all got your seeds from. They were all cooked. And the emperor admired Pink's courage to say the truth, to come to the emperor with honesty. And for this, the king awarded Pink with entire kingdom and made him emperor of all the land. Someone, the famous Anonymous, had posted this comment. I listened to a speech from our nation's leader this morning apologizing for his wrongdoings and taking responsibility. That was the weirdest dream ever. I think many of us would probably not believe our ears if we ever lived to that day that this would be a reality. And I wish really that there was a criteria for who can run for the elected position that included the ability to tell the truth, be able to take responsibility for their actions instead of believing that it is their responsibility, their job, to find somebody else to blame for everything. We live in times when accountability is not being modeled and demonstrated for us. And the question is, why would we, the rest of the people, would not just want to abandon it as well? Why would we want to lift it up and practice as part of our moral and spiritual practice? I probably do not need to say much to persuade you that not practicing accountability leads to mistrust, chaos, and ruin. That accountability is foundational for maintaining a functional democracy and preventing harm, misconduct, and breakdown of a political system and public services, as well as preventing authoritarianism. It is also our reality that daring to speak the truth often comes with severe risks for damaging consequences. And this has been true not just in our times. If you've ever seen the movie The Post, anybody? Not? Might be on your list to watch. It is a movie that is exposing government secrets and truth regarding the Vietnam War in the 70s, which was very risky as then and took a lot of bravery from the main character, Kay Graham, that is played by Meryl Streep. And she is the publisher, the lead. I was looking for that, the lead publisher of I think it was The Post, the Washington Post. In the movie, she says, if we don't hold them accountable, then, my God, who will? And if you have a chance to watch it, I don't want to spoil it, but she really risked losing everything by doing that, by running the article. On the personal level, we too might avoid practicing accountability. We might fear it because it means admitting when we were wrong. There are times that we end up with hurt relationships, burnt bridges, sometimes just simply too ashamed or maybe just puzzled about how to muster up any courage to face what may have gone sideways. Too often, accountability is seen as a negative word, as a synonym for punishment or judgment. But what if we reclaimed accountability as a spiritual practice, as a practice of humility, growth, and love that brings healing, justice, and peace in the world? Mia says, what if accountability wasn't scary? What if our own accountability wasn't something we ran from, but something we ran toward and desired, appreciated, held as sacred? What if we understood it as a gift we can give to ourselves and those hurting from our harm? What if we understood our accountability not as some small insignificant act, but as an intentional drop in an ever-growing river of healing, care, and repair that had the potential to nourish, comfort, and build back trust on a large scale, carving new paths of growth and faith through mountains of fear and acknowledged pain for generations. In a faith that celebrates interdependence and true freedom, that freedom comes from responsible action. Because we are not free to do whatever we want. We are called to be in right relationship with one another and the interdependent web of all existence. So that is our faith calling. How do we practice accountability? We know that accountability is both personal and communal. On that personal level, accountability is about the courage to examine our conscience and acknowledge when we have fallen short. And it is not about putting ourselves down. I know we're good at it, but that's not accountability. Accountability is that spiritual work of recognizing our own complicity in things that may have occurred in relationships, as well as in the systems, in the larger systems of harm. If you are a human being like me, you most likely have said the wrong thing out loud and then stayed up late at night revisiting the event and listing 50 different ways you could have responded that would have been a lot better than the one that you spit out in that moment. So what do we do when we are finally ready to admit that difficult truth to others that we'd said the wrong thing? And for ease of remembering, I'm going to offer you 4 R's, how to practice accountability repair. And these 4 R's is recognize, take responsibility, remorse, express remorse, and do the acts of repair. Not sure if 4 is easy. 3 usually might be easier to remember, but we can try for today. To just revisit and put it in short, acknowledging the harm, taking ownership without blame, expressing genuine regret, and taking concrete steps to make amends and prevent future harm. Because the goal of accountability is to address that impact on others, restore the trust, and foster lasting change through improved communication, apologies, and consistent effort to demonstrate changed behavior. So this is also true on a communal level. For us here as a congregation, we are accountable to one another for living our shared values, for being in covenant with one another, and for following our mission. And when we see our community or individuals within it act in ways that are out of line with any of the 3, our covenant, our values, or our mission, our responsibility is to speak up and call others back into the covenant. Because this is not the witch hunt. Calling someone back into is an act of care, to seek to restore the relationship, to seek to restore the bond and the commitment. So to ask these difficult questions in the moment would be to ask, how are we using our shared values and hold ourselves accountable for what we have agreed is our mission? And our mission is to provide an atmosphere and framework for examining spiritual questions individually and communally, to serve by enriching the spirit through words, music, and fellowship, to educate all ages by promoting ethics, a sense of morality, and the pursuit of personal and shared truth, and to work together to make our world a more compassionate, just, and respectful place. Are our actions in this world working toward this mission? Are they creating a more just and equitable society? And how do we hold one another accountable for living all that out together in a spirit of love? Our faith, Unitarian Universalism, is a faith that insists that we are not alone in this work. We're connected in the web of mystery and miracle. Our accountability to one another is what keeps us strong. Because accountability is a spiritual practice. It's a discipline that is rooted in love that we affirm as the center of our faith. In Jewish tradition that I mentioned earlier, right now we are in the middle of the season that is turning its focus on accountability and repair. And I know there's a lot to reckon with in this tradition as well. When we look at this tradition in general, how they see time, it is the spirit of time is woven in two books. They have the Torah and the legendary book of life. And according to a legend, on Rosh Hashanah, the new year, the angel of life writes each of our destinies for the year to come. During these 10 days that follow, the days of awe in which we are here, the book of life is kept open. And then, if we try to understand how to take the Torah's insight with us into every day, the angel of life must reconsider what is written in that book for us. By taking our thought, by considering our actions and our behaviors, we can make changes that will alter the future. And those changes will be written in that book during these 10 days. And at the very last sound of the shofar, which is the last day, on the last day of Yom Kippur, the legend says the book of life for the year becomes sealed. All is written. So in Rosh Hashanah, we look back how we have lived our lives in the past. On the days in between, the spirit of this time calls us to look at ourselves, to examine ourselves, and then make changes, make promises, make efforts to do things differently. The sages of this tradition tell us that we have the means to change our destinies. So as we go forth today, prepared to change our destinies, let us go not in fear of being called to account, but with gratitude for that opportunity to grow. Because we are people who are brave enough to practice a deep covenantal accountability that helps us all live with love at the center of our lives. Amen.
As our worship time this morning draws to a close, it is now time to extinguish our chalice. Please join me now in reciting these words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. The closing words come from Debra Haffner. The days of awe begin with us. May these days be days of reflection, introspection, and peace. May we prepare ourselves for the changes in the year to come. May it be a good year. May it be a healthy year. May it be a year of peace for all of us all around the globe. May it be a year of peace within ourselves. May we live our lives with integrity, service, and love. May we be blessed with the strength of this community, of our families, of our friends. May we remember what is truly important in life, and may we remember to be grateful every day. May we all be inscribed another year in the book of life. Amen.